Daniel Carter wiped the grease from his hands and looked at the pressure gauge one more time. The numbers were good, steady, and within normal range. He had been working on Gateway Prime for almost 6 years now, and the routine maintenance checks had become second nature to him. The massive space station orbited Jupiter like a steel moon, home to 2,400 people from Earth and dozens of alien species who worked together in harmony. He glanced at his watch and smiled. Sophie would be waking up soon in their small quarters on Deck 12. She had arrived 3 days ago for her school break, and Daniel cherished every moment they had together. Since her mother Linda had died from the virus 3 years back, it had just been the two of them against the universe. He worked double shifts when he could, saving money for Sophie's education, making sure she had everything she needed. The corridor hummed with the usual sounds of the station. Somewhere above him, the artificial gravity generators maintained their constant rhythm. Air recyclers pushed clean oxygen through the vents. It was all so normal, so peaceful. Daniel picked up his toolkit and headed toward the next junction box. He had 12 more checks to complete before his shift ended. His communicator beeped. It was Sophie, calling from their quarters. "Dad, are you almost done? You promised we'd go to the observation deck today." Daniel chuckled. "I know, sweetheart. Just a few more hours. Why don't you grab some breakfast at the cafeteria? I'll meet you there in 20 minutes. Okay." "When am I ever late?" Daniel asked, knowing full well he had missed their dinner plans twice this week because of emergency repairs. Sophie laughed. "Should I make a list?" They said their goodbyes, and Daniel felt warmth spread through his chest. She was everything good in his life, the reason he got up every morning and faced another day of crawling through maintenance tunnels. At 12 years old, Sophie was smart, funny, and brave. She looked so much like Linda that sometimes it hurt to see her smile. Daniel reached junction box 7 Gamma and opened the panel. Everything looked normal at first glance. He ran his scanner over the circuits and frowned. There was a minor fluctuation in the power flow. Nothing dangerous but worth investigating. He made a note in his datapad and moved on. Commander Patricia Hughes was having her morning coffee in the station control center when the first alarm sounded. It was a soft chime, barely noticeable among the usual beeps and signals that filled the room. She looked at the main display screen and saw a yellow warning indicator flash near Sector 7. "What's that?" she asked the duty officer. Lieutenant Carl Briggs checked his console. "Micrometeor impact. Commander. Struck the outer hull near the reactor cooling system. Shields caught most of it, but we had some penetration. Automatic repair drones are already responding." Patricia nodded. "Micrometeor strikes happened a few times a month out here. The station's shields and automated systems were designed to handle them." She took another sip of coffee and returned to her reports. 3 minutes later, the alarms changed. The soft chime became a harsh, blaring sound that filled the control center. Red lights flashed across multiple displays. "Commander, we have a problem," Carl said, his voice tight. "The impact damaged more than we thought. The cooling system for Reactor 7 is failing. Core temperature is rising." Patricia was on her feet instantly. "Activate emergency protocols. Get the automated repair systems working on it now." "Already trying, Commander." "The systems aren't responding. The impact must have damaged the control circuits too." Patricia's mind raced through the possibilities. Reactor 7 provided power to nearly a third of the station. If it went into full meltdown, the explosion would tear Gateway Prime apart. Everyone would die. "Time until critical?" she asked. 40 minutes at current rate, maybe less. Evacuate Sector 7. Get everyone out now. And find me a solution." Daniel was on Deck 9 when the evacuation alarms started screaming. His communicator erupted with emergency messages. He pulled it out and saw the words that made his blood run cold. "Reactor 7 critical failure. All personnel evacuate immediately." Sophie was in their quarters on Deck 12, right next to Sector 7. He ran. His toolkit crashed to the floor behind him, tools scattering everywhere. But Daniel didn't care. He sprinted toward the nearest lift, pushing past confused workers who were stumbling into the corridors. The lift seemed to take forever. Daniel pounded his fist against the wall, silently begging it to move faster. When the doors opened on Deck 12, smoke was already filling the hallway. Emergency lights cast everything in red. People ran past him toward the evacuation points, some crying, others silent with shock. "Sophie!" Daniel screamed. He ran to their quarters and burst through the door. She was there, standing by the window, her eyes wide with fear. "Dad! What's happening?" "One." Daniel grabbed her hand. "We need to go now. Don't ask questions. Just run." They joined the stream of people heading for the emergency shuttles. The corridor shook beneath their feet. Somewhere behind them, something exploded with a deep, booming sound that rattled Daniel's teeth. They reached the shuttle bay where Commander Hughes was directing the evacuation. She saw Daniel and Sophie and pointed them toward Shuttle 3. "Go! Go! Go!" But then Daniel heard it, a voice over the intercom, Dr. Vincent Cole from the medical bay explaining the situation to Commander Hughes. The automatic systems had completely failed. Someone needed to manually override the cooling system from inside the reactor chamber itself. Someone needed to go into a room filled with lethal radiation and manually pull the override levers. Without those levers pulled, the reactor would explode in less than 20 minutes. The shuttles couldn't evacuate everyone in time. At least 800 people would die, trapped on the station, when it tore itself apart. Daniel looked at Sophie. He looked at the hundreds of people rushing toward the shuttles, families holding children, elderly scientists being helped along by younger colleagues. He thought about Linda, about how she had made him promise to always do the right thing, no matter the cost. He kissed Sophie on the forehead and pushed her toward Commander Hughes. "Dad, what are you doing?" "Commander," Daniel said, his voice steady despite the terror in his heart. "I'm going to the reactor chamber. Tell me how to trigger the manual override." "Carter, no. That's suicide." "The radiation levels." "Tell me how, Commander. We're out of time." Commander Hughes stared at Daniel for 3 seconds that felt like hours. She knew he was right. There was no other choice. She pulled up the override procedure on her datapad and transferred it to Daniel's communicator. "The levers are in the main chamber," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "You'll have 30 seconds before the radiation becomes lethal. Maybe a minute, if you're lucky. Pull all 4 levers in sequence. Red first, then blue, then the 2 green ones together." Daniel nodded. He turned to Sophie one last time. Her face was pale, tears streaming down her cheeks. "No, Dad, please. There has to be another way." He knelt down and held both her hands. "Sophie, listen to me. I need you to be brave right now. Can you do that for me?" She shook her head, sobbing. "Don't leave me. Please don't leave me. I love you more than anything in this universe," Daniel said. "Your mom is waiting for me, and I'll tell her how amazing you've become. But you need to live. Sweetheart, you need to grow up and do wonderful things. Promise me you'll be brave." "I promise," Sophie whispered. Daniel stood and ran before he could change his mind. Behind him, he heard Sophie screaming his name, heard Commander Hughes holding her back. He ran through the corridors toward Sector 7, toward the reactor chamber, toward his death. The heat hit him before he even reached the door. His skin prickled with the invisible touch of radiation. The chamber door was sealed, and Daniel had to use his emergency override code to open it. The door slid aside with a hiss, and a wave of scorching air nearly knocked him backward. Inside the chamber, the reactor core glowed an angry orange. The temperature gauge on the wall showed numbers far beyond safe levels. Daniel could feel the radiation penetrating his body, killing his cells, destroying him from the inside out. His hands shook as he reached for the first lever. Red lever. He pulled it down with all his strength. The mechanism was old and stiff, designed for maintenance robots, not human hands. The lever finally moved, and somewhere deep in the reactor, coolant began to flow through the primary channels. Blue lever. Daniel's vision was already starting to blur. His skin felt like it was on fire. The blue lever was higher up, and he had to climb a short ladder to reach it. Each step felt like climbing a mountain. When he finally gripped the lever and pulled, his muscles screamed in protest. 2 green levers. They were on opposite sides of the chamber. Daniel had to pull them at exactly the same time, or the system wouldn't engage. He looked around desperately and saw a metal rod lying on the floor, part of some old repair equipment. He grabbed it and wedged it between the 2 levers. With the last of his strength, Daniel pulled the rod toward him. The levers moved together, clicking into place. A deep, rumbling sound filled the chamber as the emergency cooling system fully activated. The reactor temperature began to drop. Gateway Prime was saved. Daniel collapsed to the floor. His communicator was still working. Somehow, he pulled it out with trembling hands and requested a video connection to Commander Hughes. She answered immediately, her face appearing on the small screen. "Carter, the reactor is stabilizing. You did it. Now get out of there." "Too late, Commander," Daniel said. His voice sounded strange to his own ears, weak and distant. "I can't move my legs. I need you to do something for me." "Anything. Put Sophie on the screen, please." Commander Hughes turned the communicator, and Sophie's tear-stained face filled the view. She was being held by Lieutenant Briggs, who looked away to give them privacy. "Hey, baby girl," Daniel said, managing a smile. "Dad, come back. Please come back." "I can't, sweetheart. But I need you to know something. This wasn't your fault. None of this was your fault. And I want you to live a beautiful life. Be brave, be kind, and know that you were worth everything. You were worth this and more." Sophie was crying so hard she could barely speak. "I love you, Dad. I love you too. So much. Tell everyone I said goodbye, okay? And Sophie, remember that time we saw the sunrise on Mars during our vacation? Remember how beautiful it was? I remember. That's how I feel right now, like I'm watching something beautiful. Don't be afraid for me." Daniel's vision was fading. "You're going to do amazing things. I know it. I'll be watching." Somehow, the communicator slipped from his hand. The last thing Daniel saw was Sophie's face, and the last thing he heard was her voice calling for him. Medical teams reached the reactor chamber 6 minutes later. They pulled Daniel out and rushed him to the medical bay. But Dr. Vincent Cole knew immediately that there was nothing he could do. The radiation exposure was too severe. Daniel's organs were shutting down one by one. Sophie was brought to the medical bay and allowed to sit beside her father's bed. She held his hand as his breathing became shallow. Commander Hughes stood in the corner, her face wet with tears. Lieutenant Briggs was there too, along with a dozen station workers who had heard what Daniel did and wanted to pay their respects. 40 minutes after he entered the reactor chamber, Daniel Carter died. His heart simply stopped beating. The monitors went silent, and Sophie laid her head on his chest and wept. The news spread through Gateway Prime within minutes. The man in Bay 14, the ordinary maintenance engineer, had given his life to save them all. Workers stopped in the corridors and bowed their heads. Families held each other tighter. The alien diplomats from the Valorian Empire sent their condolences to Commander Hughes, but something else was happening that nobody on the station knew about yet. Far across the galaxy, on the Valorian homeworld, Queen Lysara was receiving a report about the incident at Gateway Prime. She was in her palace, surrounded by advisors and courtiers, when the message came through. The Queen read the report in silence. She learned about Daniel Carter, about his sacrifice, about the daughter he left behind. The courtiers expected her to simply note the incident and move on. Humans died every day. And while their brief lives were meaningful to them, they were just moments in the vast span of galactic history. But Queen Lysara did something that shocked everyone in the throne room. She stood up from her throne, her ancient eyes blazing with an emotion that none of her advisors had seen in centuries. "Prepare my flagship," she said. "We're going to Gateway Prime." "Your Majesty," one of the advisors asked, "surely this doesn't require your personal attention. A human maintenance worker has died. It's tragic, but prepare my flagship now," the Queen repeated, her voice carrying the weight of 3,000 years. The eternal dawn dropped out of faster-than-light travel above Jupiter 3 days after Daniel's death. The Valorian flagship was a sight that made even the most experienced space travelers stop and stare. It stretched nearly 2 miles long, its hull gleaming silver and blue, covered in patterns that seemed to shift and flow like water. The ship was older than human civilization itself, and it carried the most powerful ruler in the known galaxy. Commander Hughes stood in the docking bay, trying to understand why Queen Lysara had come. In 6 years working at Gateway Prime, she had never heard of the Queen making personal visits for anything less than major diplomatic events. The death of one human engineer, no matter how heroic, didn't seem to warrant this level of attention. The Queen's shuttle landed with barely a whisper. The doors opened, and Queen Lysara stepped out. She was tall, nearly 7 feet, with skin that seemed to glow with a soft, golden light. Her eyes were deep purple, ancient and knowing. She wore simple robes of white and silver, with no crown or jewels. She didn't need them. Power radiated from her like heat from a star. "Commander Hughes," the Queen said, her voice melodic but carrying an edge of steel. "Take me to Daniel Carter's body." "Your Majesty, of course. But may I ask why you've come?" "We're honored, but this seems unusual." "It is unusual." Lysara agreed as they walked through the corridors. Station personnel pressed themselves against the walls, bowing as the Queen passed. "I have ruled for 3,000 years, Commander. In that time, I have seen billions die. Most deaths I acknowledge and move past. But some deaths are different. Some deaths matter more." They reached the medical bay where Daniel's body had been placed in a stasis chamber. The cold preservation field kept his body exactly as it was at the moment of death. Sophie sat in a chair beside the chamber, her eyes red and swollen. She hadn't left her father's side except to sleep. When Sophie saw the Queen enter, she stood up quickly, uncertain what to do. She had learned about the Valorians in school, about Queen Lysara, who had ruled longer than human civilization had existed. But seeing her in person was overwhelming. "You must be Sophie," the Queen said gently, kneeling down so her eyes were level with the girl's. "I am very sorry about your father." Thank you," Sophie whispered. "Why are you here?" "I came because I heard what your father did. I wanted to see him for myself." "Will you tell me about him?" Sophie looked at Commander Hughes, who nodded encouragingly. For the next hour, Sophie talked about her father. She told the Queen about how Daniel always made her breakfast before school, even when he was exhausted from double shifts. She talked about how he used to read her stories when she was little, doing funny voices for all the characters. She described how he taught her to fix machines, how his hands were always gentle, even when he was frustrated. She told the Queen about her mother's death and how Daniel had held himself together for Sophie's sake, never letting her see him break down. Queen Lysara listened to every word. She asked questions, wanted to know more details. The other people in the medical bay watched in amazement. The Queen of the Valorian Empire was spending hours learning about an ordinary human maintenance worker. Finally, Lysara stood and looked down at Daniel's body in the stasis chamber. She placed one long-fingered hand on the transparent surface. "Commander Hughes, gather your senior staff and contact Earth's ambassador Gregory Walsh. Tell him to meet us in your conference room immediately. I have an announcement to make. 2 hours later, the conference room was packed. Commander Hughes sat at the head of the table with Dr. Cole beside her. Ambassador Walsh had arrived on an emergency shuttle, looking worried and confused. Lieutenant Briggs stood by the door. Sophie was there too, at the Queen's request, sitting quietly in a corner chair. Queen Lysara stood at the window, looking out at Jupiter's swirling clouds. When everyone was assembled, she turned to face them. I refuse to accept Daniel Carter's death, she said simply. The room erupted in confusion. Ambassador Walsh stood up so quickly his chair fell over. Your Majesty, with all respect, I don't understand. Death is final. Daniel died from radiation exposure. There's nothing that can be done. That is what you believe, the Queen said. That is what the Galactic Council wants all young species to believe. But it is not entirely true. Dr. Cole leaned forward. Are you saying there's a way to bring him back? That's impossible. His cells are dead. His brain activity stopped. Even our most advanced medical technology can't reverse that. Your technology cannot, Lysara agreed. But there are technologies in this universe that go far beyond what Earth, or even the Valorian Empire, commonly uses. Technologies that were banned thousands of years ago by the Galactic Council. Ambassador Walsh felt his stomach drop. Banned technologies? Your Majesty, you can't be suggesting. I am suggesting exactly what you think I am suggesting, Ambassador. There is a process called echo technology. It can recover a consciousness pattern even after death. Rebuild a body at the cellular level. Restore life to those who have died. That's resurrection, Commander Hughes breathed. In a sense, yes. Though the science is more complex than that word implies. The technology reads the quantum imprint that every consciousness leaves on the universe. It uses that imprint, combined with the memories of those who knew the person, to reconstruct everything they were. Sophie stood up from her chair, hope blazing in her eyes. I can try, Lysara said. But I need you to understand something. All of you. This technology was banned for good reasons. It was abused in ancient times. Used to bring back tyrants and criminals. Used to create armies of the resurrected. The Galactic Council made it illegal 12,000 years ago. Then how do you know about it? Dr. Cole asked. Because I was there when the ban was created. I voted for it myself. I believed then, as I have believed for thousands of years, that death must be respected, that the natural order must be preserved. The Queen's eyes hardened. But I have grown weary of watching good people die while the laws protect the comfortable position of the powerful. Your father was a hero, Sophie. He chose death to save others. The universe should not punish such selflessness with permanent oblivion. Ambassador Walsh's communicator buzzed. He looked at it and his face went pale. Your Majesty, I'm receiving an emergency message from the Galactic Council. They know you're here. They know what you're planning. High Counselor Thex is demanding you cease any action immediately. Let him demand, Lysara said calmly. I have made my decision. For the first time in 800 years, I will defy the Galactic Council. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. The Queen was risking everything. Her position, her empire's standing, possibly even war with the Council. All for one dead human. Why? Commander Hughes asked. Your Majesty, I don't mean any disrespect, but why would you risk so much for Daniel Carter? You never even met him. Queen Lysara walked over to Sophie and placed a hand on her shoulder. Because in 3,000 years, I have learned that civilizations are not built by the powerful or the famous. They are built by ordinary people who choose to do extraordinary things when the moment demands it. Daniel Carter was such a person. And if we let people like him die without honoring their sacrifice in the most meaningful way possible, Then what is the point of all our power and technology? She looked around the room at each person. I am going to bring Daniel Carter back to life. Anyone who wishes to help me is welcome. Anyone who opposes me should leave now. Nobody left. High Counselor Thex arrived at Gateway Prime the next morning with 5 warships and a delegation of 20 council members. The reptilian alien was over 2,000 years old, covered in dark green scales that reflected the station's lights. His eyes were cold and calculating as he strode into the conference room, where Queen Lysara waited. You cannot do this, Thex said without greeting or courtesy. The ban on echo technology has stood for 12,000 years. You helped create that ban, Lysara. You know why it exists. I do know. Lysara replied calmly. We banned it because Emperor Vraxis used it to create an army of resurrected warriors who felt no pain and feared no death. We banned it because the merchant guilds were selling resurrection to the wealthy, creating an immortal ruling class. We banned it because people were bringing back family members over and over, creating endless cycles of grief and madness. Then you understand the danger. I understand that we banned a tool because it was misused. But Daniel Carter is none of those things. He is not a tyrant seeking power. He is not a wealthy man buying immortality. He is a hero who died saving others, and his daughter grieves for him. Thex turned his cold eyes toward Sophie, who stood beside Commander Hughes. The girl will grieve regardless. All beings lose their parents eventually. This is the natural order of existence. Natural order, Lysara repeated, her voice sharp. Tell me, Thex, when did you last visit a planet in its natural order? When did you last see a civilization that doesn't use technology to extend life, cure disease, prevent death? We all defy the natural order every day. We only call it natural when it suits our laws. Another council member stepped forward, a being made of living crystal that refracted light into rainbows. The law exists to protect all species. If we allow this resurrection, others will demand the same right. Where do we draw the line? Who decides who is worthy of life, and who must stay dead? That is the question that frightens you, Lysara said. Not the technology itself, but who controls it. You fear that if resurrection becomes possible, your power to regulate death diminishes. Ambassador Walsh had been standing quietly in the corner, but now he spoke up. Your Majesty, High Counselor, perhaps there is a compromise. What if this one resurrection is allowed as a special circumstance, but the technology is destroyed afterward? That way, Daniel returns. But the danger of widespread use is eliminated. Thex shook his head. If we allow one exception, there will be demands for more. Every species will claim their dead are worthy. Earth alone has billions of people. How many would you resurrect? Where does it end? It ends with Daniel Carter, Lysara said firmly. This is not about creating a precedent. This is about acknowledging that sometimes the laws we create are too rigid. They fail to account for exceptional circumstances. Lysara said firmly. Lysara said firmly. Lysara said firmly. A debate erupted in the conference room. The council members argued among themselves. Some agreed with Thex that the ban must remain absolute. Others wondered if Lysara had a point. If there were circumstances where death should be reversible. Ambassador Walsh tried to mediate, suggesting various compromises that satisfied no one. Sophie listened to them all argue about her father like he was a legal problem to be solved. She felt anger building inside her, hot and fierce. Finally, she couldn't stay quiet anymore. Stop, she shouted. Every head in the room turned toward her. All of you, just stop talking. Sophie, Commander Hughes whispered. Maybe you should. No, Sophie said, her voice steady despite her fear. You're all talking about laws and precedents and natural order, but you're not talking about my dad. You're not talking about what he did. She walked to the center of the room. standing between Queen Lysara and High Counselor Thex. My dad didn't want to die. He didn't ask for this to happen. He just saw people who needed help, and he helped them. He saved 800 people, and it cost him everything. He left me alone because that's what good people do. They sacrifice. Tears rolled down Sophie's cheeks, but she didn't wipe them away. And now you're all standing here saying he has to stay dead because of some law? That it's natural for him to be gone. My dad spent his whole life fixing things, making things work. He never hurt anyone. He never asked for anything special. He just loved me, and did his job, and tried to be good. She looked directly at Thex. If the universe punishes people like my dad, if being a hero means you have to stay dead while bad people get to live, then the universe is wrong, and your laws are wrong. And I don't care if I'm just a kid or if I'm not supposed to talk to the Galactic Council like this. You're wrong. The room was completely silent. Thex stared at Sophie with an expression that was hard to read. Finally, he spoke, his voice softer than before. You have courage, child. Your father would be proud. He turned to Lysara. But courage does not change the law. I am sorry, but the Council's decision stands. Daniel Carter cannot be resurrected. Then I will act without the Council's permission, Lysara said. She stood and moved to stand beside Sophie. I am taking Daniel's body, and his daughter, to Sanctuary. If you wish to stop me, you will have to use force against the Valorian flagship. Thex's scales seemed to darken. You would risk war over this? I would risk everything over this, Lysara replied. Because if we have become so bound by our own laws that we cannot recognize simple goodness when we see it, then we have failed as a civilization. Ambassador Walsh stepped forward, his face troubled. Your Majesty, if you do this, the Council might impose sanctions on Earth as well. They might see us as complicit. I have to think about what's best for humanity. Then think about this, Lysara said. What message do you send to humanity if you let the Council dictate that their heroes must stay dead? What do you tell every person on Earth who risks their life to save others? That their sacrifice means nothing? That the universe will not honor their choice? Walsh was quiet for a long moment. Then he took a deep breath. I will support your decision, Your Majesty, and I will explain to Earth's government that this is about principle, not politics. This is madness, Thex said. All of you are making a terrible mistake. Perhaps, Lysara agreed, but it is my mistake to make. She looked down at Sophie and smiled. Come, child. We have a journey to make. Commander Hughes, please have Daniel's stasis chamber transferred to my ship. Doctor Cole, I would appreciate it if you came with us. Your expertise may be needed. I'll come, Cole said immediately. I want to see this technology for myself. Within 2 hours, the Eternal Dawn was preparing to depart. Daniel's body was secured in the medical bay. Sophie had packed a small bag with her belongings. Lieutenant Briggs had volunteered to come along to provide security, and Commander Hughes surprised everyone by asking to join as well. I should have stopped him from going into that reactor, Hughes said quietly to Lysara. I should have found another way. If there's a chance to bring him back, I need to be there. As the flagship pulled away from Gateway Prime, Thex sent one final message. Queen Lysara, the Council is prepared to send military forces to stop you if necessary. Turn back now, and we can negotiate a resolution. Lysara's response was simple. I am going to Sanctuary. Follow if you wish, but you will not stop me. Daniel Carter will live again, and the galaxy will have to accept it. The Eternal Dawn jumped to faster than light speed, leaving Jupiter and Gateway Prime behind. Somewhere ahead, hidden at the edge of the galaxy, lay Sanctuary and the forbidden technology that might change everything. Sanctuary appeared like a dream at the edge of known space. The planet was hidden behind layers of quantum shielding that made it invisible to normal sensors. Only those who knew the exact coordinates could find it. As the eternal dawn approached, Sophie pressed her face against the observation window, staring at the blue and green world below. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "It has remained hidden for 8,000 years," Queen Lysara said beside her. "The preservers maintain it as a repository of knowledge and technology that the galaxy has deemed too dangerous for common use." The ship landed in a clearing surrounded by ancient trees that reached toward the sky like cathedral pillars. A group of figures waited at the landing pad. They were not guards or soldiers, just ordinary-looking beings from a dozen different species, all wearing simple gray robes. An elderly human woman stepped forward as the landing ramp lowered. She had white hair tied back in a bun, and kind eyes that crinkled when she smiled. Sophie was shocked to see another human so far from Earth. "Welcome, Your Majesty," the woman said. "I am Helen Ward. We've been expecting you." Commander Hughes gasped. "Helen Ward? The xenobiologist who disappeared 50 years ago?" "I came here dying," Helen explained as they walked toward a large building built into the hillside. "Terminal cancer. 6 months to live. The preservers saved me with technology that Earth didn't have. I chose to stay and help maintain the archives. I send messages home occasionally, telling them I'm on extended research. It's not entirely a lie." They entered the building and descended through corridors carved from living rock. Finally, they reached a massive chamber lit by a soft blue glow. In the center stood a structure that looked like a combination of ancient temple and advanced machine. Crystalline pillars surrounded a circular platform, and holographic displays floated in the air showing equations that Sophie couldn't understand. "The echo chamber," Lysara said quietly. An old alien with skin like bark and eyes that glowed faintly green approached them. This was Elder Kane, leader of the preservers. "Queen Lysara," he said, his voice like wind through leaves. "You understand what you ask is not simple? The echo technology requires more than just activating a machine." "I understand," Lysara said. "Explain what is needed." Elder Kane gestured to the chamber. "To resurrect someone, we need resonance. The consciousness leaves an imprint on the universe, like ripples on water. But those ripples fade quickly unless they are reinforced by memory, by love, by the impact the person had on others." He looked at Sophie. "Your father's sacrifice created strong resonance. The 800 people he saved all remember him. Their gratitude, their awareness of what he did, strengthens his imprint. But the strongest connection is yours, child. You are the anchor." "What does that mean?" Sophie asked. "It means you must enter the echo chamber and relive every memory you have of your father. The machine will read those memories, amplify them, use them to reconstruct his consciousness pattern. But it will not be easy. You will experience not just the happy memories, but the painful ones too. His death, your mother's death, every moment of loss and grief." Sophie didn't hesitate. "I'll do it." "Sophie, wait," Commander Hughes said. "This could take weeks. It might be traumatic. Maybe we should—" "I'll do it," Sophie repeated firmly. "I don't care how hard it is. I'm bringing my dad back." Helen Ward placed a gentle hand on Sophie's shoulder. "You're very brave. Your father raised you well." The process began the next morning. Sophie lay down on the platform in the center of the echo chamber, while crystalline sensors lowered around her head. Elder Kane explained that she wouldn't be unconscious, just in a deep, meditative state where memories could flow freely. As the machine activated, Sophie felt a gentle pulling sensation in her mind. Suddenly, she was 5 years old again, sitting on her father's shoulders at a street fair. She could smell cotton candy and hear his laughter. Then the memory shifted and she was 7, crying because kids at school had been mean to her. Daniel was holding her, telling her that kind people always win in the end. The memories came faster. Her mother reading bedtime stories, family dinners, where they all laughed together. The day her mother got sick. The day her mother died. Daniel, holding himself together at the funeral, even though Sophie could see he was breaking inside. Good memories and bad ones, joy and pain, all of it flowing through Sophie like a river. She cried but kept going. She saw her father teaching her to fix a broken radio. She saw him working double shifts but never complaining. She saw him tired and worried, but always smiling when she came home from school. Days passed. Sophie remained in the echo chamber, lost in memory. Dr. Cole monitored her vital signs and reported that she was physically healthy, but emotionally exhausted. Commander Hughes and Lieutenant Briggs took turns sitting with her, offering support even though Sophie couldn't respond. Queen Lysara watched the process with ancient eyes that had seen countless wonders but had never seen anything quite like this. The love between a father and daughter, laid bare and measured, converted into quantum data that could rebuild a human consciousness. On the 14th day, High Counselor Thex arrived at Sanctuary with his fleet. They couldn't land because of the shields, but they broadcast a message demanding that Lysara cease the resurrection immediately. "This is your final warning," Thex announced. "The Council has voted. If Daniel Carter is brought back, we will be forced to take action against the Valorian Empire." Lysara sent back a simple reply. "Come and stop me, if you dare." The fleet held position in orbit, waiting. Inside the echo chamber, the process neared completion. Elder Kane studied the readings and nodded with satisfaction. "The resonance is sufficient," he announced. "We can begin the physical reconstruction." Daniel's body was brought from stasis and placed on a secondary platform. The echo chamber hummed with power drawn from quantum fields that connected all consciousness in the universe. Sophie's memories, amplified 1,000,000 times, created a blueprint that the technology could follow. Helen Ward monitored the biological processes. "His cells are regenerating. The radiation damage is being reversed at the molecular level." Dr. Cole watched in amazement as tissue that had been destroyed slowly repaired itself. "This is impossible. This violates everything I know about biology." "It violates the biology you were taught," Helen corrected. "But consciousness and matter are more connected than most species realize. When you have a strong enough pattern, a clear enough memory, the universe itself can be convinced to rebuild what was lost." Hours passed. The reconstruction continued cell by cell, neuron by neuron. Sophie finally emerged from the echo chamber, exhausted and pale but determined. "Is it working?" she asked. "It's working," Lysara assured her. "Your father is coming back." On the 36th hour of reconstruction, Daniel Carter took his first breath. His eyes fluttered open, confused and disoriented. He saw lights above him, felt the platform beneath his back. Memory came flooding back. The reactor, the radiation. Dying while holding Sophie's hand. "Am I dead?" he asked, his voice rough from disuse. "No," Sophie said, rushing to his side and grabbing his hand. "No, Dad, you're alive. You're back." Daniel turned his head and saw his daughter. Tears filled his eyes. "Sophie, how is this possible?" "No. Queen Lysara brought you back," Sophie explained through her own tears. "She refused to let you stay dead." Daniel tried to sit up, but his muscles were weak. Dr. Cole helped him, checking his vital signs with a medical scanner. "Everything looks normal," Cole said in wonder. "Your body is completely healed. It's like the radiation exposure never happened." Before anyone could say more, alarms blared throughout the facility. Elder Kane's voice came over the speakers. "The Council fleet is entering the atmosphere. They're preparing to land by force. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. Sonnet 4.5.